The Gulf Coast Growth Show is sponsored by Chevron Pasadena Refinery and is an extension of the Economic Alliance Houston Port Region, where our mission is to market and grow a vibrant regional economy. Hey guys, and welcome back to the Gulf Coast Growth Show. I'm your host, Jason Lee, and sadly, we don't have my co-host and my partner in crime, Zeke Smith, with us today, but we are joined by Mr. Chris Dowling, the Regional Vice President of Texas Mutual, and his partner in crime, Deborah Davenport, the Territory Management Specialist. Glad to have you guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for joining us. So for those that don't know, Texas Mutual is a Texas-based workers' compensation insurer, right? And so probably one of the larger ones here in the state. And again, I think probably the most interesting and valuable asset is that they are Texas-based, which we love,
yeah.
Right? So it's like HEB, Texas. You gotta love Texas-based, and then people that understand the dynamics of our industries, right? So what is really at risk out here? Because I think we're probably one of the most industrious or industrial states
for sure
that exist out there, right? So to have a group that understands and gets it is critically important. So we're going to talk a little bit about y'all's company today, get us kind of a background, and then also the industry in and of itself, and then any of the big things that you guys have going on. So who wants to kick us off? Who wants to tell us a little bit about the history of the company?
Well, I don't want to correct you, but we are the largest.
The largest.
Sure.
Okay, perfect.
Competition.
The largest
in the state.
Fantastic. Well, hey, you know what? You need to correct me to get that one right?
Yeah, no, we've got about 77,000 policyholders here in the state of Texas.
Wow.
Which, if you were to put that into market terms, we're at about 41% and some change in terms of total market.
Wow.
Presence here in the state of Texas. But yeah, we've got a long, interesting history as a company. Started out as kind of the insurer of last resort of the market for policyholders who had difficulty getting insurance elsewhere. And so over our kind of 30 plus years of history, we're now both the standard or voluntary market, if you use insurance terms,
okay.
Meaning that we're the kind of the free market for obtaining workers' comp. But we also still are and have our ties back to being the insurer of last resort of the pool, if you will. So,
gotcha. And you were saying something before the show, but it started out as what, Deborah?
It was the fund. It was a state mandated fund.
Yeah, and how was that?
Like a risk pool.
Okay. Yeah.
And we were tasked with stabilizing the work comp market because it was so unaffordable years ago.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
it was very unsafe to be an employee actually in Texas. And we worked really hard to make it a safe environment for workers so they could go home to their families, and so we could keep rates low enough. If they were safe, we could keep rates and premium low enough so that our businesses could thrive.
Gotcha. Understood. And so it's interesting that we're talking about this type of risk and this insurance. I think when I'm speaking for the rest of probably everybody listening to this, and maybe even you guys sitting in front of us, but as our insurance rates have been going and skyrocketing and everything through the roof when it comes to our P&C, our property casualty and things of that nature, what's been the nature of y'all's industry? Because that's separate, right?
Yeah.
Like they can justify that and say, oh, more hurricanes, more this, more that. Are we seeing rates go up in y'all's industry? Are they staying neutral? Is safety? What bears into the weight of that?
It's interesting you say that. In a lot of ways, the work comp market is kind of the antithesis to everything else.
Okay.
We year in and year out consistently are getting double-digit rate decreases.
Oh, wow.
In the workers' comp market. Yeah. And
good.
So while it's a great thing in that it's making a product that is a necessity, we believe, for a lot of our employers here in the state of Texas, more affordable.
Okay.
It just creates an interesting marketplace because it is that much different from, say, to your point, the property side, where you've got hurricanes and hail and other things that impact that.
So it's working the other.
It's working the other way.
I guess that's indicative of an increase in safety and execution, I guess, at the industry level.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
That is. It's the one product line that my agents are happy to see me come see them.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, oh, it's you. Thank goodness.
Thank God you're not coming to tell me it's more expensive.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm blessed. I have a great insurance agent, but it's been every year. I'm like, hey, dude, we got to talk. Like, this is it's getting out of control.
Yeah.
But let me ask this question. So as we think, I'm interested and very intrigued by it for our show today. But so with workers' compensation, I thought that was something that was just like, I've always understood like workers' comp was already out there. Like when I get hurt on the job, I get workers' comp, right? I mean, typically. So where?
Hopefully.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think going back to even working in a grocery store, right? Like they would, years ago they would say, if you hurt your back or whatever, there's some type of baked in compensation to support that. So for those that are listening in here, what's the difference between short-term disability, workers' compensation? Like, what is the distinct difference between all those things? And how do you guys fit? Who's buying? Is it the guy in the plant that's buying it for himself, or is it the employer who employs the guy at the plant that's buying it for them? Like, where does just give us a kind of an overlap understanding?
Yeah, so if you're an employee of an employer, right, and you're working for them and you get injured, you hope that they've purchased workers' comp, just from the seamlessness of getting care, from the broad spectrum of what care is available to you. You hope that your employer has that.
Okay.
And so in order for that to be the case, because workers' comp in the state of Texas is not statutory.
Okay.
The only state in the entire United States where it is not legally required for an employer to purchase workers' compensation. And in that, with that being the case, that employer in most traditional settings is going to work through an insurance agent or an insurance broker to purchase workers' compensation.
Got it. Understood.
And so in that, when they purchase that workers' compensation, if their employee is injured on the job, then that's our duty as Texas Mutual to respond, right?
Understood.
In terms of giving them the care that they deserve, whether that be just simple medical care, being able to see a doctor or get their first aid, or to your point, if there's some situation where they're going to be out for an extended period of time, then through that claims process, then they do have the potential for, lost wages or indemnity payments, as we call them internally, to be able to pay out to them so that they can continue on supporting themselves, supporting their families in the time of being injured and off work.
Got it. So this bridges a gap over and above your traditional disability, your short-term disabilities and things like that. Does it kick on after that? Is it kind of like or how does that work?
Well, it's also a protection for the employer against
got it.
lawsuits from employees too.
Okay,
so
great.
it's very statutorily regulated.
I mean, think about it this way. If an employee gets injured on the job and their employer doesn't carry workers' comp, the employer a lot of times will say, hey, let's get you to the doctor. We'll pay for your medical costs as far as first aid and getting fixed up and all that sort of thing. But if that injury exacerbates itself and carries on and goes on for, they're missing time in work, or God forbid they get an infection or something, and this injury or this instance balloons into something larger, then a lot of times that's where litigation comes in.
Right.
And
all of a sudden you got a $500,000 medical
It
bill.
becomes very, very costly for the employer at that point.
Okay, understood.
So that's a protection to carry work for your employee.
And does it help bring down their overall risk profile? So, for example, I guess their comprehensive risk when they're looking at it, like from a PNC, like if I'm a commercial contractor, I usually work with a commercial insurance broker who's bringing me, protection for my assets, protection for my job sites. So there's a whole bundle of different things that you're having to bake into that. So when you add in things like workers' comp, does that help them from an overall perspective collectively?
Absolutely. I mean, you think about going from what is an uncontrolled or an unforeseeable cost into something that's now a fixed cost.
Gotcha.
Right. And we all have a lot of fixed costs in our lives, both personally and professionally, but it's one of those things that, well, that fixed cost is a much safer, I don't want to say guarantee, but it is a safeguard in place to make sure that they know what it is that they're paying for, and they know that their employees are going to get taken care of, and it shouldn't, in theory, then balloon into some large litigation scenario. Like
we have, I do business valuations at my job for companies, and one of the biggest risk components in our valuation process is discussing the liabilities that are out there and the pending liabilities that are out against your organization. So I work with a lot of industrial companies, construction companies, and so almost every industrial or indoor construction company has got a lawsuit almost every time. Anyways, there's usually some form of lawsuit going on. What you don't want is one that it could be prevented, right? Is the one because there's always going to be a lawsuit over not getting paid or especially in the construction industry. But if you could put something in place that keeps that out there, then your organization is inherently of more value because you're not carrying around so much risk.
Yep.
Right.
From a risk standpoint, employees are really your greatest risk and your biggest asset.
Gotcha.
You can have a building, you can have product, but if you have no employees to handle that, you have a problem.
And the challenge is you get a lot of employers who say, I know my employees. They're loyal to me. I trust them. I know their families. They would never sue me, right? Well, I tell you what, as soon as something really bad happens and it comes to whether or not they're going to survive or not, and litigation is their path to doing that, I mean,
that's not personal.
Right.
At that point in time, I
Right.
mean, if I have to choose between keeping my family fed or not suing you because you're a good boss, on the return, I would have said, hey, if you're a good boss, you would have bought the insurance, dude. Right? So now pivot. Let's talk a little bit about you guys, what you have going on. Texas Mutual, let's talk about the first one, which is safety grant, generational learning, workforce development. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I think it really starts with we as an organization believe in giving back to the communities in which we operate. Right, we've got 4 regional offices across the state of Texas in the predominantly large metropolitan areas that you can think of, and the mission internally and externally is giving back in any way that we possibly can. And so one of the major avenues in which we do that is through kind of our grant process, if you will.
Awesome.
And so we've got a number of different grants that kick off throughout the course of the year. A couple of the ones that you hit on, we have our safety grant process, which is coming up in the late summer. And so that's an application process for our policyholders to apply for up to a $1,500 grant to use towards safety related, whether it be courses, whether it be personal protection equipment, various things that, are expenses outside of the kind of their normal day to day. They can apply for that grant and we will help fund that. We also have our generational learning and our workforce development grants, which actually are kind of right in the middle of the end of the first cycle, which that's a unique one because that's for our policyholders, but also just businesses in the state of Texas who are in need for one of those various things, whether it's, developing their workforce so that they know how to operate in a safer manner on the job, or getting them the kind of the learning and the education that they need to further themselves as individuals. And so we dole out those grants across the state to nonprofits who, again, are policyholders of ours, which is an awesome experience to be able to share in that together, but also people who maybe aren't policyholders, who don't even know who Texas Mutual is, that we were able to kind of get them that grant that helps them become more efficient and help their employees in a lot of different ways.
That's fantastic.
So one of the really fun things about this grant process is that employees of Texas Mutual get to volunteer to review those grants and make the decisions on where that money is going to go.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
This is my 3rd year, 6th time to do this.
Okay.
I really enjoy it, but it's sad to see how much need there is out there. We can't even give enough for how many apply.
Right.
But it feels good to be able to be a part of it.
Be a part of it.
And
Fantastic.
I'd be a little remiss if I didn't mention the fact that, when we have a disaster or a weather-related event that happens in the state of Texas, I mean, think Hurricane Harvey or even, when we have, large flooding events, different things, we as an organization really try our best to assess that need by talking to policyholders, talking to the agents that sell our product to those policyholders and say, is there a need? What is the need? What is the scope of that need? And then we'll oftentimes carve out additional funding separate from those other grant processes just to say, hey, we know you're going through it, and use this money for what you will to keep your business going and, keep your customers, happy and fulfilled and successful themselves. So it's a really cool company.
Be a part of a company like that. That's probably pretty rewarding.
That was part of the reason I wanted to go to work for Texas Mutual.
Nice. How long have you been there now?
I've been there almost 5.5 years.
Okay, cool.
That happened there.
Yeah.
But the 2 things that made me want to work for Texas Mutual, first of all, integrity, but their safety program and the fact that they're trying to prevent injuries.
Right.
And make sure employees go home to their families. And then the second thing was how involved in the community. And we aren't just collecting premium, we're taking care of people too. So
I love that.
I don't know, those were the 2 things that made me want to work for Texas Mutual.
You're a great mascot for them, that's for sure. So you probably already knew that. Now, talk about model corporate citizenship.
Well, that actually goes along with what we're saying. If we feel as the leading work comp carrier in Texas, we have a responsibility to our communities to be a model corporate citizen.
Right.
We want to be a good example. We want to take care of the communities and help our policyholders thrive, our families thrive, and that helps us too. I mean, we thrive.
Yeah, and we use the term a stable force for good really to describe that, right?
Right.
We aim to always be there, right? So we're always stable, and we aim to always be focused on doing good for, to Deborah's point, the communities, the policyholders, the agents, and our own internal folks as well.
Gotcha.
That's really the mission that we look to carry out. So.
Fantastic. So, Deborah, you're probably more known in this organization than I am, which is impressive because I host a show every month, right? And a couple times a week people see my face, but I've seen yours all over the place. Tell me about y'all's relationship with Economic Alliance, how it's been, what your experience has been like.
Well, I'll tell you how we got here. We got here through one of the agents that I'm assigned to, that I work with, and that was Steve Cody.
Yep,
And,
Steve is a legend.
He introduced me to the Economic Alliance and said, hey, here's a place you might be interested in. And I'd seen some information. I think I saw something on the website, and I'm like, petrochemical, I really need to learn more about that, because a lot of our policyholders are in this industry. So I got involved with the Gulf Coast Industry Forum. I just volunteered to be on the committee, and I don't know, 5 years ago, and I'm still here.
Nice.
And then the Women in Alliance, the leadership luncheons, I haven't missed one yet, and I'm like, I will move my schedule to make sure I'm there. But we take agents with us.
Fantastic.
I take some of our young underwriters with us. We're trying to help develop them too.
Okay.
So.
Well, what's been one of the, I guess, as a member, user, somebody who's become part of the organization, how have you used this organization for your particular company in regards to growing it and seeing it become more successful?
Yeah, I mean, we use it in a lot of ways, right? I mean, Deborah hit on a couple of different things. It allows us to connect with additional, members of the community, employers of the community, just to be able to network, get to know them, understand what types of businesses are here in the Houston area. I mean, obviously, it's a very vast network, and so it's organizations like this that help us get that connection.
Okay.
And then on top of that, we as a workers' compensation provider here in Houston, there's value in us understanding the economy. There's value in us understanding the market, and so the resources that they've been able to provide to us in order to kind of educate ourselves, so that we can then in turn educate our employees as well, has been invaluable.
Great, fantastic.
We pass this information that we hear. Especially what's happening in the port, I pass that along to the agents that I see,
right,
because their clients are involved, and sometimes they don't always hear what's happening. And
well,
so
it's tough, right? When you're in four walls, if you don't have an advocate out there, I try to be an advocate for my clients, because they don't have the capacity to get up and, they're either on job sites or running companies all day long. So I'm always like, hey, let me go out and be a voice for you. I try to send them updates and things that we're doing. It's kind of a common practice. So good that you've captured. Obviously, you're successful what you do for that reason, right? Because they see you as a value add. So.
Well, Deborah's in a unique position because I think you use the word mouthpiece,
right?
And I think as a territory manager at Texas Mutual, she's got a lot of customers that need her and need to hear from her, both internally and externally. Our agents, our policyholders, our own employees, and so that's really kind of her role in the community, is to kind of soak all that up like a sponge, right? And then be able to disperse that information to her wide array of people that depend on her for that information.
Fantastic. So as we get ready to wrap up, do you guys have any big news or anything that you want to share about your organization?
Yeah, well, so
we
as far as big news related to Texas Mutual, every year we release what's called our dividend, and it's obviously not guaranteed, and nor is any other dividend, but we have been providing dividends for 25 years plus now at this point, and so really what that is it's a way for us to share success with our policyholders.
Wow.
And so a portion of that in terms of premium goes back to our policyholders based on their performance as far as safety goes.
Oh, wow.
Because the safety is a direct correlation to the number of claims, the number of injuries that they have, and those that are doing well within that space, then it's kind of our opportunity to say, hey, thanks.
Right.
You're doing great. You're helping us fulfill our mission. We want to help you fulfill your mission. And so we just announced a $350 million dividend, which is our largest ever.
Goodness gracious.
Last year we're at $340 million, so we're up $10 million year over year on our dividends. And it's exciting. It's something that we look forward to announcing every year in June. And with regard to that, our agents also really love to be able to go out and deliver that news to their clients.
Absolutely. It's like a rebate, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's fantastic. You can't beat that.
It's really
And then
fun.
getting rewarded as a user, that's kind of like that. If you stay with your insurance long enough and they lower your rate because you haven't had an accident, it's kind of the same concept. But $350 million sounds a lot cooler.
I think, was it $4.4 billion over the 26 years?
$4.4 billion back to you.
And honestly, the more impactful number to me is, as of last year, it was over 90% of our policyholders receiving a dividend.
Wow.
So.
Well, that's fantastic, right? That's indicative of the nature and the culture of safety that is really being kind of ingrained here in our great state, so, and especially in this region. So very excited about that. Deborah, you got big news. This one sticks out to me because I saw your hand. I wanted. So you got the largest sapphire that you'd ever mined, 1.45 carats. So you're a sapphire miner?
I mine a lot of gemstones.
Okay.
I have yet to find the elusive diamond.
Okay.
I go about 4 times a year mining in Arkansas for diamond. In fact, I'm going for 5 days.
What part of Arkansas do you mine in?
It's southwest.
Okay.
It's Murfreesboro. It's
Okay.
the Crater of Diamonds. It's the only place in the whole United States where you can mine diamonds for $13 a day and take whatever you want.
Wow.
I, in fact, have some sapphires on today.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah,
These are
I
all
noticed
raw.
that.
Yeah. But the almost a carat and a half will end up not quite 3/4 of a carat when it's done being cut, which it's being cut right now.
Wow.
So-
And then what do you do with it?
I will mount it probably in a necklace, mostly a pendant.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yes.
Good for you.
Yeah.
That's fun. So, Chris, new to Houston, we're getting ready to wrap up. Want to welcome you to our town. You're obviously you got a great connector here. We're great connectors here at the Economic Alliance. So if you need to figure out where the best places to eat are, the coolest places to hang out, just let us know. And guys, we really appreciate you. We appreciate the noble work that you guys do. It's impactful. It's making a difference. And you guys have been great members of the organization. So thank you for your time today. Anything else before we wrap up that we didn't get to?
No, we just we appreciate the opportunity to come in here with you today and tell a little bit about our story, both at Texas Mutual and personally, and enjoyed it. So thank you.
Fantastic. And then for those that are potentially agents and or maybe a user and or business owner who needs to who's perhaps considering the value after this show of workers' compensation and needs to reach out to Texas Mutual Grants, I would assume they need to reach out to Deborah. Or either one. Yeah, so Deborah, she goes like, I want the deal.
Either
I want
one.
the deal.
The ultimate connector, right?
She's like, give me the deal, boss. Give me the deals.
Call me.
So how do they get a hold of you, Deborah?
You can email me at Deborah Davenport at texasmutual.com.
Deborah Davenport at texasmutual.com.
Yes, or
Okay.
just go to our website and find our connection there.
Fantastic. And it's texasmutual.com.
texasmutual.com.
Perfect. Okay. Well, great. So you guys heard that first. So make sure if you're looking after this stuff, get a hold of Deborah and get her over there to see you and or talk to your agent as soon as possible. So thank you guys for tuning in today. As always, we want to thank you for being members of the Economic Alliance. If you're not a member, we'd encourage you to get involved. Please, if you're listening to this show and you think somebody needs to hear it, pay it forward by passing it along to them. You can go to allianceportregion.com and go to the media tab to subscribe and stay connected to all of our states. So it'll literally come to your phone when we release one, which is fantastic. And then always feel free to reach out to myself or Zeke Smith, my co-host, and you can always give us feedback directly through LinkedIn, and we'd love to hear from you. So again, thank you guys for joining us today,
Thank you.
and thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you next week.